wanted to do this video because I get asked a lot, how do you get into carving? And specifically that question always leads to, what do you need to carve? Because a lot of people don't know what it takes to carve. And you can certainly start with a pocket knife, a fold-out pocket knife. But I think for most of us carvers, what we prefer is something we like to call a straight blade knife. Simple as that. And when you're carving, what you want to make sure is that you're as safe as you can be. A straight blade knife, and this is one of Mike Shipley's straight blade knives with a walnut handle. A straight blade knife allows you the opportunity to carve just about anything you want without the fear of that blade folding back in on yourself. If you're like me and you've had issues with a pocket knife or something that didn't stand up to as much torque as you might apply when you're carving, what you want to do is make sure that your carving knives are as safe as they can be. And so for me, I like making sure I have a straight blade knife. Now, any straight blade knife will do depending on what you want to do. And you can certainly get huge, long, 2-inch, 3-inch if you want to. I think I've got a Mora knife in here. I'm getting off the screen, sorry. You can certainly get any kind of knife that you want. But in reality, for what I do, and I do caricature carving, for what I do, I want something between 1.5 inches and 2 inches for big work, when I'm removing a lot of chips. And I want something smaller and more thin and pointed for something that I'm going to do for detail. And so this one would be a heavy rough out knife, say. This one would be another rough out knife here. You can see the blades are, I think those blades are 2 inches long. These smaller ones are 1.5 inches, all the way down to 1.25 inches. You know, I'm saying lengths and I don't really know. That one is about 1 inch and almost 2 inches, 3 inches and 3/4. This one here is a little over 1 inch, maybe 1.25 inches. This one here is right at 1 inch. This Mora knife that I have, you can see how long that blade is. It's 3.25. So this is what I need for most of my carving. Most of my carving takes place using these tools right here. Straight blade knives. They work well. They do everything you ask them to do, but there are also some things that they just can't do. But I would use these kinds of knives, whether they're handmade or whether they're straight blade. There are some that upsweep as well. I don't use those as much. I have in the past, but I don't. Simply because I just like a straight blade. It's a personal choice. It's not a manufacturer choice. But I want to talk about 3 tools. You need a straight blade knife. You need a gouge. And you need a V-tool. Now, I say that's all you need, and in reality, if you look around here, I've got a lot of tools, most of us carvers do, because every one of these come in different sizes. I have this one as a gouge. I'll let you get that close to the camera lens so you can see when I say gouge, I mean something that has a rounded profile to it. And this one was made by Denny way back when, and it's a number 9. Could be a number 6, I'm not real sure. It's hard to tell when the number goes either way. But these come in a lot of different sizes. You can get the really really small ones. These gouges are really, really tiny. This is made by the Swiss-made brand. It's a File, P-F-E-I-L. I think that's how you say it. But these gouges come in a variety of different sizes. Here's another extremely small one. I've got a large one laying on the table. Here's another. I think this is an 11. I think number 11 goes all the way from one ear to the other. It does a complete 180 degrees. I don't know what the size of that one is. This is a Stubai brand. And it looks like, if I measure in millimeters, it looks like it's about 1 centimeter, 10 millimeters, maybe a little less. And so the gouges, again, just like the knives do, come in different sizes and lengths. The gouges come in different sizes and lengths. And the size, the sweep is what's called the roundness of it. So how round it is. 11 is completely round, 180 degrees. 1 or 2 is a completely flat one. The other tool you need is a V-tool. And I say need, there's a lot of carvers that don't use these. They just sit with a pocket knife and they do their thing. Hey, I grew up watching men do that. But for me, what I'm doing, I like to be specialized, and some of my stuff requires a specialized cut that I just haven't learned or don't know, or quite frankly don't want to do with a knife. Watch Harley Refsall and John Overby and some of those others who do that all with one knife. Hey, I'm proud for them doing that. I like using tools though. Anyway, back to that. This is a mid-range tool. It's not, I think I would guess that that's a 45 degree because you're looking at the degree and you're looking at the width between the ears. Here's one that's a little bit wider between the ears, it's bigger, and I think this one's more like a 70. If I was looking at that angle, I think this one's more like a 70 rather than a 60 or a 45. You can get ones that have much, let me see if I've got one over here. I may not, there's one. You can see how narrow that one is. Boy, I don't know what degree angle that is. This is a flex cut. Very specialized tool. I don't use it a whole lot, mainly because that little bitty point down here is hard to keep on the same angle as the ears. Someone sharpened this for me and I got a little bit out of the ears got knocked back a little bit. But that's a very sharp angle. And those basically are the only 3 tools you need. You need a sharp, straight-bladed knife, you need a gouge, and you need a V-tool. And those V-tools, again, they come in all kinds of different sizes. Here's a really tiny V-tool like this one. It's a wee V. I think this is a 1/4 inch. And then there's a really, really small V. And you can see the differences in these. These are really tiny tools. They don't cut very big, but they also you don't use them all the time as well, is what I'm saying. Other than that, the only other tools that I basically use on a regular basis is what we call a fishtail gouge. Fishtail gouge is one that looks like exactly what you say it is. It is a gouge that angles out like a fishtail. And I have 2 basic ones that I use. I have several, but these are the main ones I use. And these tools are very useful because as a beginner, when you carve, a lot of times what you're doing is you're gripping this in your hand, and depending on the slickness of the handle, it could be very tiring after a certain amount of time. And so if you're gripping this handle, this one looks like it has a light coating. Some others have a much slicker coating. It still is a function of your hand. If you're carving like this, you're gripping with your forearm, and after you've done this, especially if you've taken off big chunks, after a while your arm starts to get tired. And so this flat blade, carving this way or that way, does the same thing as carving with this. It's still a cutting blade. There's the angle. I'm still cutting with it, but now instead of gripping this with my forearm, now I've got it with my hands and I'm carving, gripping with my hands, but my shoulder is moving that back and forth, and the shoulder is a bigger muscle than the forearm. And so it comes in handy with being able to switch from gripping the tool very tightly because you're taking off big pieces to using a fishtail gouge. And this does the same thing. It will still cut just like a knife will. Does the same thing. This one you can carve all you want, and your fishtail gouge would do the same thing. Generally, I like to keep my anchor finger on there, but for demonstration purposes, you can see that I'm doing the exact same thing with this fishtail that I would be doing with that straight blade knife. And so that's all the tools that you need to carve. One of the other things you need is a sharpening system of some sort, and I've got a couple here. This one is made by FlexCut. FlexCut makes one that has the flat leather on the back so that you can do your flat blades of some sort. And then it has profiled ones that you can shape the inside or the outside bevels of these. So this one would be great for this one, the inside bevel. This would be great for a V-tool. And what you want to do is make sure that you're getting the right angle on these tools. So if I'm going to sharpen I'm sharpening the outside bevel, and then I'm taking off the metal on the inside, just honing it. This is mostly a honing process rather than a sharpening process. And so you need something like this. This is very easy to use. It's user-friendly. One of our club members has made something a little bit different, where you have a piece of MDF with what looks like sandpaper, what is sandpaper. I use the stuff on this that you use for finishing sheetrock. So once you apply your putty and tape on the sheetrock, once you're done, then you can use this to smooth out the ridges. It's got a 400, 600, 800 piece of sandpaper, and then on the other end it's got a flat piece of leather. So to use that flat piece of leather, you also need some compound. And I've got a couple of different kinds of compound. Here's the FlexCut yellow brand, or yellow color. Got the FlexCut brand there. And you can hone that or charge that up. You want to make sure you get enough compound on there that will do exactly what you want it to do. And so whether you're using liquid, this is liquid compound, whether you're using dry compound, or whether you're using the stick compound, you just want to make sure you're using the compound on your leather so that as you hone your flat blade knife, you're using the compound to help polish and to help remove stray metal atoms, because these blades are thin enough that when you use them, they will remove metal atoms along the edge of that blade simply because they're so microscopically thin. So looking at the cost of these, you can buy straight blade knives. FlexCut has a great FlexCut knife called the KN13 that I really enjoy using. It's a great all-around blade. It's thick enough in the back that you can do heavy carving. It's thin enough at the edge that you can do detail carving. Every manufacturer has the same type of tools. They all have fishtails. They all have straight blade knives. They all have V-tools. They all have gouges. So you just got to find primarily the one that fits in your hand. Some people like the dolphin shape. Some people like the squared shape. It's easier to grasp. Some people like the rounded one. It nestles right in there back against that finger. So you can do a lot of things with that. The other thing you need to have, and I can't stress this enough, is a safety glove. Safety gloves come in a variety of different sizes, a variety of different colors, a variety of different manufacturers. The one that Woodcraft sells primarily is this one by, I can't read that. Wizard, W-H-I-Z-A-R-D, Handguard. You want to look for one that has a 5 rating, because ANSI 5 is the highest protection you can get, but they come with dots on them. They come in different colors. This one is primarily sold by Treeline out of Salt Lake. Or Provo, sorry, don't want to insult them. Provo, but you can get gloves in any kind of configuration. These little rubber dots here help you protect or hold on to the carving, although I'm not sure. That it says 100% Kevlar product, so I've used these a few times, just didn't feel like it was very safe, but that's just me. So if you don't have a safety glove of some sort, you need to have some safety glove. I know a lot of people that carve without them. They carve completely away from themselves, or they carve with their wood being completely held down on the table by a holding system of some sort, but I like to use the glove simply because it is that much more safe. And so I usually buy the ones off online that are $8 or $12 or whatever for a pair of them, and I get about a 6 months use out of them before they're picked apart. I also use mine with a little more protective around them. I protect the finger, the forefinger and the thumb of my hand. And even said that, you'll still get some little nicks in there. Because these gloves are woven, at some point, once you start poking at them, they'll eventually start to unwind. So hopefully that answers your question. I just wanted to let you know what I use and what most carvers start out with. Of course, all of us have a bundle of tools. I could drag in here my tool caddy, which has a whole bunch of them in there. There's a whole bunch of them in this caddy here. We've got another one over here that's got a bunch of them. But every one of us start out with the same type of tools. We start out with a fishtail, I apologize. Start out with a straight blade knife, start out with a gouge, start out with a V-tool, and after that you start buying more than your wife wants or your significant other wants. But you know, that's the joy of having several different tools. When I'm carving it as a demo, I don't have to stop and sharpen. I can just stop and grab another tool and move on. But it also gives me the flexibility of using a real small tool or a much larger tool when I'm carving. So hopefully that answers any questions you may have about carving. Feel free to reach out if you got any questions or comments. I'd love to hear them, and let me know what you think. You may have a different way of doing it, and I'd love to hear that too. I've seen a lot of them, and I haven't seen them all. So I'd be interested in hearing what you have to say and what you have to do.